Tell me something. When was the last time you made a significant decision in your life without seeking permission? Not formal permission, not someone's authorization. I am speaking of something more subtle, that almost automatic urge to check with someone if everything is all right, if it makes sense, if it won't bother anyone, if it is the right time. Do you realize you do this? That before taking a step that matters, your first reaction is not to act, it is to seek validation? If you recognize this pattern, you need to hear what I'm about to say. Because this need for permission is the clearest symptom of a problem that is costing you years of your life. You possess a power that is yours, a capacity to decide, to create, to take a stand, to transform things around you, and this power is locked away. Not because someone stole the key, but because at some point in your history, you decided it was safer to hand over the key than to use it. And since then, you have been operating with a fraction of who you truly are. In the next few minutes, I will show you exactly how this happened, why it happened, and the precise mechanism by which you reclaim what is yours. Before anything else, I need to dismantle an idea so deeply embedded in our culture that most people don't even realize they carry it. The idea is this: power is dangerous. Since childhood, you received signals from family, school, religion, society, that having power is something that needs to be controlled, moderated, hidden. If you were a child who took a stand, you heard, "Who do you think you are?" If you spoke firmly, you heard, "Settle down." If you showed above-average talent, you heard, "Don't get ahead of yourself." The message was always the same: shrink, fit in, do not occupy too much space, and you obeyed. Not because you were weak, but because you were intelligent. You learned quickly that in the system you lived in, exercising power had consequences, and the intelligent response, at the time, was to store it away. The problem is that the intelligence that protected you in childhood has become the prison of your adult life, because what was a survival strategy became an identity.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you, who were tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.
You are no longer choosing to be small, you believe you are small, and there is a vast difference between the two. Researchers from the Department of Social Psychology at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte have conducted studies on what they term chronic self-containment, the behavioral pattern in which an individual systematically restricts the expression of their capabilities, opinions, and desires as a response to a socialization that punished self-expression. Data shows that this pattern is significantly more prevalent in adults raised in environments where hierarchy was rigid and questioning was punished, which describes the formative experience of most people. And the most disturbing data from the study is this: chronic self-containment is not perceived by the individual as a restriction, it is perceived as personality. The person says, "I am just like this. I don't like to expose myself. I prefer to stay behind the scenes," and genuinely believes this is who they are, when in reality it is a crystallized adaptation. If this hit home, leave a like now, because recognizing that what you called personality might be an adaptation is the first step to recovering what lies beneath. And this gesture helps this content reach others living in the same invisible prison. Now I need to tell you a story that will serve as a mirror for this process, and I guarantee you have never heard it told this way. David. Everyone knows David as the boy who defeated Goliath with a sling, but what almost no one examines is what happened before the stone was cast. because that is where the true revelation about power lies. When David presented himself to face Goliath, Saul did something that seems generous but was, in fact, the most subtle trap of the narrative. He dressed David in his own armor. He put the bronze helmet on him, the coat of mail, the sword. He gave David the tools of power that the system recognized as legitimate, and David put them on. He tried to walk, and he said something that is perhaps the most powerful phrase about authenticity in the entire Bible. I cannot walk with these, for I am not used to them. In Hebrew, the expression is lo nisiti. Literally, I have not tested this, I have no experience with this. This has not been proven in me. Do you understand the depth? David did not say the armor was bad. He said the armor was not his, it works for Saul. It was tested on Saul's body, in Saul's experience, in Saul's history. But on my body it does not work. It hinders me instead of protecting me. And so he took off the armor. He took off what the system said was necessary. He took off what seemed to be the obvious protection. And he stayed with what was his. 5 smooth stones and a sling. Simple tools without prestige, without the appearance of power. But tools that had been tested in his real life in the years of shepherding, in the confrontations with the lion and the bear that no one saw. The Hebrew word for the power David exercised at that moment is chayil. Chayil is one of the richest words in the biblical vocabulary. It appears over 200 times, and its meanings include strength, valor, capability, wealth, and army. But the specific use of chayil in the texts of David reveals something particular. Chayil is not brute force. It is a force born from the congruence between who the person is and what the person does. It is the power that emerges when there is no distance between identity and action. David had chayil not because he was stronger than Goliath. He had chayil because he operated from himself, without borrowed armor, without another's tools, without the validation of the system. Researchers at Cambridge published studies on what they call agency congruence, the degree of alignment between a person's perception of themselves and the actions they execute in the world. The data demonstrates that agency congruence is the strongest predictor of personal effectiveness, stronger than intelligence, stronger than resources, stronger than networking. When a person acts from who they truly are, instead of acting from who they believe they should be, their capacity to solve problems, adapt to new situations, and positively influence others increases measurably, not because they gained a new power, but because they stopped wasting energy sustaining an armor that is not theirs. How many armors of Saul are you wearing right now? How many ways of acting, speaking, and presenting yourself to the world are borrowed? How many tools you use to face the giants of your life were tested in another's experience? Your father's, your bosses, your religious leaders, or what culture says works. But in your body, in your history, in your reality, they only get in your way. Subscribe now and hit the bell, because in the next video I will show you what happens when you start operating without borrowed armor, and how the environment around you reacts when it realizes you have stopped asking for permission. This content is a direct continuation. Now let's go to the second level, because I need to give you the mechanism by which power is reclaimed. For this, there is a Greek concept that is one of the most important keys I have ever brought to this channel: exousia. Most biblical translations translate exousia as authority or power, but exousia is different from dynamis, which is the other Greek word for power. Dynamis is power as force, as the capacity to do. Exousia is power as a right, as legitimacy. Dynamis is the muscle. Exousia is the authorization to use the muscle. And here is the point that changes everything. Exousia comes from exesti, which means it is permitted, it is lawful, it is within my right. Exousia is not power that someone grants you. It is power that is already yours by nature, by position, by identity. It does not need to be given, it needs to be recognized. And this is the central knot of what you are living. You have dynamis. You have strength, capacity, talent. What you lost was not the strength. It was the exousia, the perception that you have the right to use the strength you possess. At some point in your history, the message, "Who do you think you are?" made you believe that using your power was a transgression, that taking a stand was arrogance, that occupying space was selfishness, And since then, you have had dynamis without exousia. You have the muscle but do not authorize yourself to use it. Researchers from the Social Neuroscience Laboratory at the Federal University of Goiás investigated the neural correlates of self-permission, the moment an individual authorizes themselves to act according to their real capabilities, without waiting for external validation. What they discovered is that this moment produces a specific pattern of activity in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the same region associated with the evaluation of personal value and autonomous decision-making. And this pattern is significantly suppressed in individuals with a high level of chronic self-containment. In simple terms, when you spend years restricting yourself, the brain circuit of self-permission weakens through disuse. Not because it is damaged, but because it is not exercised. Like a muscle that atrophies in the absence of use but can be rebuilt with deliberate training. This means that the reclaiming of your power is not a mystical event. It is a neurological process. Every time you act without waiting for permission, the circuit strengthens. Every time you take a stand based on what you know to be true, even while feeling fear, even without validation, the neural connection of exousia is rebuilt. Not all at once. Action by action. Decision by decision. Voice by voice. And here enters the second story, which will show you what exousia in full action looks like. Deborah. In the period of the judges of Israel, a period of chaos, fragmentation, and absence of centralized leadership, Deborah was a judge and a prophetess. The text says she sat under a palm tree, and the Israelites went up to her for judgment. The Hebrew word used to describe Deborah's position is yoshevet, sitting. But yoshevet, in the Hebrew judicial context, does not simply mean being seated, it means occupying the seat of authority. It is the same word used to describe kings on the throne. Deborah did not ask for permission to occupy that seat. There is no text describing an inauguration ceremony, a vote, or a consensus. She sat, and the people came to her, not because she imposed it, because they recognized in her the exousia, the legitimate authority that does not need to shout to be perceived. And the most extraordinary detail of Deborah's narrative is this. When the time came for the battle against Sisera's army, Deborah summoned Barak to lead, and Barak responded with a phrase that exposes exactly the pattern we are discussing. If you will go with me, then I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go. Barak had dynamis. He had 10,000 soldiers. He had position. He had everything the system said was necessary, but he did not have exousia. He did not authorize himself to act without someone, in this case Deborah, validating the action. Barak is the exact portrait of someone who has power, but does not give themselves permission to use it. And Deborah's response is one of the sharpest in the entire Bible. I will surely go with you, nevertheless the honor shall not be yours. Not because Barak was incompetent, but because power that is not exercised from one's own authority, power that needs a crutch, validation, someone holding their hand, loses the dimension that would make it complete. Researchers at Johns Hopkins published studies on validation dependency in leadership contexts and demonstrated that individuals who condition their actions on the approval of authority figures, even when they possess superior technical competence, show significantly inferior results not for lack of capacity, but due to decision delay. The time spent seeking validation is time lost in the window of opportunity. And when the action finally comes, it arrives after the optimal moment. The competence was there, the internal authorization was what was missing. Comment the word authority below. Not authority over others, authority over your own life. Exousia. The recognition that you have the right, which you have always had, to use the power you carry. When you write authority, you are doing what Deborah did under the palm tree. You are occupying the seat that is yours without waiting for someone to invite you to sit. Now I need to take you to the third and final level, because without it, everything remains incomplete. Because I showed you that power was locked by self-containment. I showed you that reclaiming it is a process of recognizing the exousia that is already yours. Now I need to show you how this power is sustained after it is reclaimed, because most people reclaim it for an instant, get scared by their own potency, and go back to hiding it. The third story is Daniel. Daniel lived in Babylon, a system that was not his. He had been taken there by force, trained in Babylonian customs, renamed with a Babylonian name. Everything in the structure around him said to Daniel, adapt, conform, use the armor of the system. And Daniel, unlike many around him, did something that the Hebrew text describes with impressive precision. It says that Daniel purposed in his heart, in Hebrew, Vayasem Daniel al-Libo, that he would not defile himself. The expression Vayasem al-Lev means to place upon the heart, and in Hebrew thought, this is not an intellectual decision. It is an existential decision. It is when the resolution is not in the head, it is in the operational center of the being. It is not an opinion, it is a position. And what makes Daniel the definitive example of sustained power is that he maintained this position for decades. Not in a moment of heroism, not in a specific crisis. In every meal he refused, in every compromise he did not make, in every situation where it would have been easier, safer, and more convenient to yield, and he did not yield. Daniel's power was not an event. It was a continuous posture, and this posture has a name that connects everything. Ometz Lev. Ometz means firmness, strength. Lev, as we have seen, is the heart in the Hebrew sense, the center of perception, will, and decision. Ometz Lev is the courage that is born from the center. It is not impulsivity, it is not stubbornness. It is the serene firmness of one who knows who they are and does not negotiate that with the system. Researchers from the Resilience and Mental Health Program of the Central Bank of Brazil, in partnership with academic institutions, published data on factors for sustaining behavioral change in high-pressure institutional environments. The central discovery is that individuals who sustain changes in posture in resistant environments share one characteristic. The change is not motivated by an external result, but by identity congruence. They do not change to obtain something. They change because they can no longer live in contradiction with what they know to be true. And this motivation, which is internal, not external, is the only one that resists the continuous pressure of the system for the person to return to the previous pattern. This is Ometz Lev. It is the fuel that does not run out. Because it does not come from the outside, it does not depend on applause, results, or validation. It comes from the center. It comes from the lever. And as long as the lev is intact, the power is sustained. I need now to connect the three stories, because together they form the complete mechanics of reclaiming power. David shows you the first step. Take off the borrowed armor. Identify everything in your life that you are using because the system said it is necessary, but which in your body, in your experience, in your truth, does not work. It doesn't matter if it looks like protection. If it was not tested on you, Lonicity, it is weight, not strength. Your chayil is in the 5 stones and the sling, in the tools that are yours, that were proven in your history, which perhaps no one values because they do not have the appearance the system expects. Deborah shows you the second step. Occupy your seat. Stop waiting for an invitation, permission, or validation. Exousia, legitimate authority, is not granted by vote. It is exercised by position. And the position is yours. It already is. It always was. You are not becoming someone with authority. You are stopping the pretense that you don't have it. Daniel shows you the third step. Sustain the position. Not as a heroic event, but as a daily practice. Ometz Lev. Firmness of the center. Every meal you refuse, every compromise you do not make with what contradicts who you are, strengthens the circuit. Every time you say no to what is convenient but false and yes to what is difficult but true, the exousia consolidates. And here is the exercise. Today I want you to identify 3 armors of Saul that you are wearing, 3 ways of acting, presenting yourself, or making decisions that were borrowed from parents, from bosses, from culture, from fear. Write each one down, and next to each one write what is genuinely yours that it is covering. Which stone, which sling, which real tool of yours is hidden under that borrowed bronze? And then choose one, just one, and take it off. Tomorrow, operate without it. It will feel like you are naked. It will feel like you are unprotected. David also seemed so, a boy with stones facing a giant in armor, and the giant fell. not despite David's vulnerability, because of his congruence. I know what is happening inside you now. One part is lit up, recognizing every word, and another part is taking inventory of all the reasons why you cannot take off the armor right now. Both parts are real. The question is, which one will drive? And I cannot decide for you. No one can. That is the point. The exousia is yours. The decision is yours. The dynamis is intact. What is missing is the instant in which you look at the borrowed armor and say, with all the clarity of Omet's Lev, Lo nisiti, this is not mine. I do not need this. I have what is mine, and what is mine is enough. If you know someone who is living inside an armor that is not theirs, someone with talent, with perception, with real capacity, but who operates at a fraction of what they could because at some point they learned it was safer to shrink, share this video now. Because sometimes the most powerful act you can do for someone is simply to say, I see what you are hiding. And what you are hiding is exactly what the world needs. In the next video, I will reveal what happens in relationships when you stop operating with borrowed armor, who draws near, who moves away, and why the reconfiguration of your social circle is the most concrete test that the reclaiming of power is real. Activate the bell. I will see you in the next one.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.